Hey guys, I heard that you wanted to start a garden, but you can't. Something about you having a black thumb, you don't have the space or time to grow anything. Well, I just wanted to let you know that you're wrong. I'm gonna teach you how you can grow a highly nutritious vegetable in 7 days. Let's go check these out. So what are these highly nutritious vegetables I'm talking about? Microgreens. Have you ever heard of a microgreen before? Chances are sometimes you can see them in stores, but most of the time they're not there. So a microgreen is actually just a young seedling of a vegetable or herb. As you can see here, I have 4 trays of different microgreens growing. And I could tell you that this is broccoli, this is red cabbage, this is daikon radish, and this is purple rainbow radish. And basically I plant these very heavily dense, all the seeds very close together in these little trays, or you can use whatever you have, and I'm gonna show you other options. But you plant them, you water them, and within 7 days, you harvest them at this stage. So there's 2 little leaves right here, and you can see the other little leaf inside is just starting to come through. So this is called a microgreen, and it tastes just like a radish. It's sweet and it's spicy. So I just want to chime in real quick because a lot of the times people get sprouts and microgreens confused. Microgreens can be grown without dirt, but most of the time they're grown with dirt. Microgreens are also harvested at the base, so you're not eating the root or the seed. Sprouts, on the other hand, are grown in water and no soil or anything is used. So I grow my sprouts in a jar, and as you can see, these are lentils and they're almost done. I'm growing these ones as a treat for my chickens, but these ones are grown just with water and rinsing. And so these are not the same as microgreens because I also would consume the seed in these ones. So, okay, back to the other video. Why would you want to grow microgreens? Well, good question. I can't stop eating. You don't need a lot of space to grow these. A beginner can do it. Like my kids could grow these microgreens, and your kids could too. It's a great project. But the best part is they are a superfood. These microgreens contain up to 40 times the amount of antioxidants and nutrition that their mature that's really spicy. That their mature vegetable would. So for instance, this red cabbage right here, I could eat an entire handful of this red cabbage and I would be getting the same nutritional benefits as if I had eaten an entire red cabbage without all the cabbage problems. So these are great for kids. My kids love to eat teeny tiny things. Like, look at this tiny, sorry, I cut myself. Look at this tiny little red cabbage. It's hard to see. Let me see if you can see it. It tastes very cabbagey too. But these are great. I love them because I can add vegetables to anything and I don't have to think about how I'm gonna cook them. So I can eat a steak, throw some microgreens on top. Salad, I'm gonna give it a little boost with microgreens. I make my kids smoothies in the morning. I'll throw in a handful of broccoli microgreens or red cabbage. I won't do radish. That's too spicy and that will ruin the flavor of the microgreens. I make a really great microgreen pesto with the radish and it's to die for. But anyways, there are so many ways to use these little vegetables and you don't need any more than a little container with dirt, seeds, and a countertop. And in 7 days, you can have these super powerful antioxidant rich vegetables. So keep watching because I'm going to take you through the whole tutorial on how I grow these microgreens, how I do it on this large scale with my trays and my shelf and my lights. But I'm also going to show you as an everyday person who may not have this entire setup can grow it in an old strawberry container or whatever container, maybe an egg container. But you can grow this on your windowsill and in 7 days you've got fresh food. So keep watching and let's go see how we grow them. All right, so let's get started with figuring out what kind of microgreens we're gonna grow. The common microgreens that you'll see maybe in stores, some stores carry microgreens and some don't, But some of the most common kinds you'll find are broccoli microgreens, radish, arugula. You'll see sunflower microgreens, and they are delicious. There also might be beets, and that's kind of, you might see a salad mix, which could be, oh, there's a train, which could be a variety of different lettuces, also usually arugula, and maybe some brassicas. So a lot of the brassicas tend to be more of the microgreens that I see around. So how do you find microgreen seeds? You could find them at your local store. Honestly, microgreens labels are no different than you just buying broccoli seeds or cabbage seeds. However, I find the main difference between growing microgreens and just growing the packs from the store are that when you buy microgreen seeds, especially when I buy them more in bulk, they're significantly cheaper than buying a $3 or $4 bag at the grocery store. So I'll kind of show you the packaging, and I'll tell you a little bit about where I might buy some of my seeds. So here's one example, and this is 1 pound of seeds. So this is from True Leaf Market. They're probably my #1 place to go online to buy microgreen seeds. They have a great variety. They have so many microgreen seeds, and I tend to buy organic. So they're all non-GMO, and a lot of them are heirlooms. So they also offer a lot of other kind of seeds on there. And you can also buy equipment for growing microgreens, along with so many other things. So with these microgreen seeds, this is 1 pound, and this would last you for a really long time. You don't have to buy this much, but we eat a lot as a family, and I grow these year round, like even in the winter. So I like to buy them in bulk, and I just have them. This particular variety is cantaloupe. Did you know that you could eat cantaloupe microgreens? And they taste almost exactly like cantaloupe or like a cucumber, but they are so good, and they're fuzzy, and my kids do like them, but they are a little interesting. So that's one kind of seeds. Once I get the seeds, a lot of the times if I get them in a bigger container or a smaller container, I'll kind of put them in these jars. These are broccoli seeds. Like, look at that. That's probably hundreds and thousands of broccoli plants in there. So many. These seeds are tiny, but they are mighty. They are mighty. Okay, so I also have Rambo radish. That's another one that we're gonna grow today. It's kind of a purple radish. And I've got daikon radish. These are huge radishes if you let them grow, but they're also like one of the top, I wanna say, superfoody microgreens out there. They have a lot of studies on them about all the nutrients that they have in these ones. And then I also have red cabbage, another one of my favorites. So if this is your first time growing microgreens, I would tend to say to stick to maybe some of the brassicas, the broccoli, the cabbage, and those ones are gonna be the best for beginners, and they're gonna get the best bang out of your buck, and they're gonna be delicious. And then you can move on to all the more interesting and a little bit more complicated ways to grow the other microgreens, like beets or chard, etc. So the next question is, how are we going to grow them? What are we going to grow them in? The best thing to do is use whatever you have. Now, I had a microgreens business, and so I have a ton of these 10 by 20 trays. These are kind of the gold standard when it comes to growing microgreens. And we use a 2-tray system where the bottom tray, you'll see, has no holes in it. It's a little dirty, but you know, we are growing vegetables in dirt, and so that's just kind of what you do. I do rinse them out in between. You have the bottom tray, which is what we use for bottom watering. Then we have the top tray that is full of all these little holes. This is the tray that we're actually gonna put the dirt in. So basically I'm gonna put the dirt in, we're gonna put the seeds on, and then from then on, I will never water these like normal vegetables that we grow in our garden. I will always put water in the bottom here, and the roots will suck up the water like a straw, and they will always be bottom watered. Doing this makes it so much easier to harvest, because when you're watering from above, a lot of the soil sometimes will splash back up on the leaves. So by watering from below, it decreases the amount of soil that splashes back up, which then you don't have as many problems with like getting mold. And also my favorite part is that I don't wash my microgreens. So if I can bottom water and then I can just harvest them, I'm like eliminating about like 99% of any soil that would be on them, which keeps them fresher longer when they're not wet. Okay, so another thing we can use are these little trays. I've also got these little trays and they work the same way. They have a little bit more holes in them, but I love these when I want to do multiple varieties of little ones. I also love these for kids. They come in a lot of different colors. They also come in black, and these fit perfect in a 10 by 20. So these are a 5 by 5, and you can get 8 in a 10 by 20. Is that right? 5, 10, yeah, you can get 8 in there, and then you can have 8 varieties going all at the same time. So these are really fun, but they also are something that you probably wouldn't just have at home. So my last option is use whatever you have. You can grow them in this is an old strawberry container. And I'm sure if you ever get fruit, you'll have extra of these. If you buy milk, you could just cut the top off of a milk jug. There are so many things you could do. So there's no reason you can't grow these at home just with seeds and dirt. So you can kind of pick the container you have for the spot you have. Like maybe you just have a tiny little ledge in your kitchen. So find something that works on that ledge and then go from there. Okay, so now we've talked about the seeds, we've talked about the containers. The only other thing you need to grow microgreens is soil or some kind of substrate to put the seeds in. So some seeds don't even need soil. Like peas grow really well without anything, as long as you keep them moist. But personally, I like to use soil. So you can use, a lot of microgreen growers will use coconut coir, and you can buy those at your local hardware stores, or you can buy them on Amazon. And they come generally compressed as a brick that you just put water on and they kind of expand, and then they're great in that manner. Personally, I've always loved using an organic potting mix. They're really light and fluffy. I like to keep everything organic, and also when it's a potting mix, it doesn't have any pieces of like mulch or other things in it. So a lot of times I can buy that also from my local hardware store. If you're growing for a business, obviously you're gonna wanna price out your soil, but if you're just growing for home, like just buy what you can. I would definitely refrain from using anything outside or that's been opened, because a lot of the times they will have little pests in them or other microbes. And if you're gonna be growing microgreens inside your house, then you definitely don't want that. I tried that one time and I had little gnats everywhere. It was the worst. So I will kind of show you a picture of what I'm using right now, and then let's get to growing. Let's go grow. Let's go. Okay, so the first thing I like to do is take my soil and I like to put it into a big storage container. And then I can kind of go through, since this is a potting mix, it's already pretty light and fluffy, but because it's been in a bag, there are also parts of it where like they're chunks. So I just kind of go in here and break it up, and that way when I start doing my microgreen trays, it goes a lot faster. Okay, so here comes the fun part. I'm probably gonna do about 2.5 cups of dirt. Maybe 3, we'll see. And once I put that in the tray, kind of just break up any leftover particles, but I'm just spreading it around so that it creates about a 1/2 inch. I'm trying to get about a 1/2 inch of soil because these microgreens aren't going to be growing for very long, so they really don't need that much soil. I think 3 cups is going to be the better option. So about 3 cups or so. And I kind of just flatten it out as much as I can. If you have the trays handy, my favorite thing to do next is to go in with another tray, and I kind of push it down, because once I add the seeds to this, if there's a bunch of different mountains or valleys, the seeds are gonna roll into those spots, and I don't need a whole bunch of seeds growing in just one spot. So now you can see that it's pretty flat, and it's gonna be ready for seeds soon. I'm gonna put that aside though, so I can show you how you can also grow it in your home if you don't have this type of equipment. But same thing. We'll just do, that's probably more about 1 cup. And like I said, we only need about 1/2 inch to 1 inch or so of some kind of substrate. Obviously, I'm not gonna have a tray to put on top of this, but because it's so small, you can do a pretty good job of getting it flat. So that's pretty flat, and we'll move on to step 2. Okay, now step 2 is gonna be getting our soil wet. If we put our seeds on right now when it's dry, and then we try to put water on top, it's gonna take all of those seeds and spread them around everywhere. So if we can pre-moisten the soil first, then we put the seeds on, give it one more little mist, and everything should be set. So first I'm gonna go ahead and moisten these. I have it just kind of on a mist setting. I wanna get it to where it's pretty saturated, that's the word I'm looking for, but not so much that water's gonna be pooling at the bottom or there's gonna be puddles anywhere. So for the mist setting, that looks good there. And then for this guy, that looks pretty good there. All right, done with the water. Okay, so the next step with growing microgreen seeds is us actually putting the seeds on. So I'm gonna start with this tray, my 10 by 20, and I'm gonna kind of show you, let's see if you can see that, how I figure out how many seeds I need to use. So first, I'm gonna zero this off so it doesn't measure the glass. And I'm gonna change this to grams because that's the unit of measurement that I like to use for weighing our microgreen seeds. So for broccoli, I like to use 20 grams of broccoli seeds. So I'll grab my broccoli seeds right here, and I'm using just a 1/8 cup right now, but we can see that with a 1/8 cup, that is already at 20 grams. So it kind of works out well. This also equals about 2 tablespoons of microgreen seeds, if you just want to know that for future reference. So now that we have our seeds measured, we can go ahead and add those to our 10 by 20 tray. So we can do this a variety of ways again. You just kind of pick what you think is best. Many times I'll just reach in or I'll pour them in and I'll just scatter them. And you just want to make sure, because I like to make sure I go along the edges first, almost like a coloring book page when you outline the coloring book page and then you kind of go in and fill in the rest of it. But what you can also do is if you have a shaker bottle, I like to save these from like spices that I've used. You can add it here and then you can just use it as long as these seeds will fit through these little holes, and then you can just shake it throughout. And this also is a great way to get everything evenly distributed. My favorite reason to use the shaker method is for when the kids help me. So generally before, they would I'd have a giant clump of broccoli seeds everywhere. And this way, it really limits the amount of seeds in one specific area. So I'll kind of show you a close-up of what this looks like now. So as you can see, I don't know if you can see all those tiny little seeds on there, but generally speaking, they look pretty well spread out. There's no giant clumps anywhere. So now that I'm done putting the seeds on here, I'm gonna give it one more small mist to make sure that all the seeds have some water on them. And then you may be wondering why I didn't cover them up in soil. Well, that's another reason that I don't like to water from overhead once they start growing, is because I don't want the leaves and everything that we're going to be eating having soil on it. So my next favorite way to grow these is once this is on, seeds need darkness to sprout. So, move fly. I put another tray on top, and then I usually also put a couple dictionaries or something that weighs roughly 5 to 10 pounds on top of this. And once this starts to be pushed up, and believe me, these sprouts are strong. Well, I would say these microgreens are strong. So they will start to push this up, and once it looks like it's about to topple over is when I will take this off and I will start to show the microgreen sunlight, and they'll finish growing. But for the first like 4 days, they're gonna stay completely covered like this. I'm not gonna water them. They have enough water in there to last them while they're emerging from their seeds. And so we literally just leave it for the next 4 days. So once I get all of my microgreens done, I will show you how I stack all of my trays for however many trays you're using, and then we'll just keep updated. Now, let me put this one aside and show you what you can do for yours. So if we're still using the containers we have, and the next best thing is to get our microgreen seeds. Now, I don't know what size container you're gonna use. I couldn't tell you. This is probably about a 5 by 5 area, but my best bet is to take microgreen seeds like this and just sprinkle them on. I'm looking to make a nice little layer where they're evenly spread out and they're not too crazy. So I probably used a teaspoon or so here. This might have been about 2 teaspoons. And I think this will be plenty. Now, what I'll do again this time is I'm gonna take dirt now and I'm going to put just a thin layer on top, because we don't have something perfectly this size that we can sit on top to show how dark it's gonna be. So I'm just gonna put a little layer of soil to cover up the seeds, and then that way I can mist it and we will grow it as if you would grow normal plants. If you're just growing this for your house, then it's not gonna be that big of a deal to wash your microgreens, or just to be careful when cutting them. So now I'm just gonna give it a slight mist. Actually, I'm gonna push this down a little bit first, and then I'm gonna give this a slight mist. And those should be ready to go. Everything's down pack. I want to make sure that the seeds are making contact with all the wet dirt, and this is ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and close this up, and we can set it on our counter. We could set this in a closet. This can kind of be set anywhere for the next few days while the things start to emerge. So we'll check in later. Now, when I grow microgreens, I like to grow at least 4 trays at a time, since they perfectly fit up on one level on my shelf. And well, you can never have too many microgreens. So I'm making a tray each of broccoli, red cabbage, rainbow radish, and daikon radish. Now that I've gotten all of my seeds placed, I'm gonna give it one more mist. Now that I have all 4 of my trays, I stack them. What? So I take this tray, stacking it right on top, and this is my double tray, so each tray is double. It's got the one without holes on the bottom and the one with holes on top. So I'm stacking and I'm stacking again, and I got my last tray here of broccoli to stack on top. And so I kind of give it a slight nudge down. And the last thing is I'm gonna put one more tray on top so that each one is properly stacked and there's no light getting through this. And then I'm gonna go inside, and I know my husband's got some big books that I can put on top to kind of weight it down. And then in about 5 days or so, we're gonna check this, and you will see how they're all gonna start poking through the sides. Day 1 of microgreens, and here is the rack I purchased from Amazon to grow them in our kitchen. I'm only using 2 of these shelves right now, and currently Ringo is trying to get my attention. This seems to be a pretty normal occurrence with huskies. Anyways, back to our microgreens. I have placed a stack of 4 trays to germinate on this shelf, with the top one blacking them out. And we'll kind of take a peek here at their day 1 progress. Here's the broccoli. Looks like it's starting to sprout. Same with the red cabbage. I can see all the little root hairs. The daikon radish is doing well, and so is the rainbow radish. Now, the broccoli microgreens in our strawberry container, we're not going to see much germination right now since we topped this with soil, but I can see a hint already. Day 2, there wasn't much change for our seeds, but I wanted to quickly address the lights I use. So these lights are called Hyper Tough, and they are essentially just 4-foot long shop lights. I bought these from Walmart for about under $25 each. I have these shop lights hanging about 6 to 8 inches from the bottom shelf, and here's a video of my hand just for some comparison. You want to aim for lights with at least 4,000 Kelvin, but closer to 6,500 would be best. I believe these lights are around 5,000 and they've always worked great. They're even awesome for my spring starts. Day 3, and we are getting some radishes peeking out and they're kind of searching for the light. The broccoli have really grown a lot, and you'll see with a lot of these microgreens in the beginning they're yellow. That's because they have yet to be introduced to the light and thus they don't have any chlorophyll. The others are purple because that's just their variety. Our reusable container is getting a lot of growth too, and these appear more green because they do have access to light from the windowsill. Now day 4 is the day we have been waiting for. You can see all the microgreens escaping, and if I let this go one more day, this will all topple over by the morning because these little microgreens are so strong, they'll just continue to push up the trays and it will continue to go sideways. And our other container looks like it's growing really well too without much light, and so it's really establishing a good root system. Now I'll turn the light on and unstack these. They all look like they're growing well, but the broccoli and the red cabbage can sometimes start out with really short stems. So this part's optional, but if I can get their stems a little bit taller, they're going to be a lot easier to harvest. The trick to this is putting one of our blackout trays on top upside down for a day or so, just to give them room to continue stretching and looking for the light. And our other broccoli container is growing away, so you can see the soil being pushed up with the leaves. So I'm going to spritz this with water, and I'm going to push some of these clumps down with my fingers. That way, as it continues to grow, the soil can settle down on the bottom so that when we harvest, we won't be eating soil. So now we're on the morning of day 5, and we're going to be removing the blackout trays from our cabbage and our broccoli. And look at how much they've grown. They've almost doubled in length with their stems. So now we're also going to get their first watering. And so I also do this from the bottom tray, and I'm just going to pour in about 1.5 cups or so to fill the bottom tray. The other broccoli microgreens are looking fantastic. They are lush, green, and bushy, and you could go ahead and even start harvesting these now and eating them. You can spritz these with water, but I think it's better to put them in a shallow container or a plate and continue to just give them a little bit of water from below. By evening time on day 5, the leaves are really starting to uncurl and the colors are getting a lot more vibrant. The stems are growing taller and they're looking like they're getting ready to be harvested. Day 6, and there's not a lot to show right now because they're just continuing to grow, but by tomorrow I believe they'll be ready to be harvested on day 7. And it's hard to believe that only 7 days ago these were all just seeds. And now they've grown into a highly nutritious superfood, all grown on one shelf in 1 week. The broccoli microgreens in our used strawberry container have flourished despite not using the exact same practices I use with my trays, but it just shows you how easy you can grow with very little. So now we can harvest our microgreens on day 7. You can do this several ways, but I usually grab some paper towels and I'll use either a container or a Ziploc bag, and then you can use scissors or a sharp knife. Then all you do is lightly grab a bunch of microgreens and snip them about 1/2 inch above the soil line. Sometimes you'll realize this step will have some of the dirt and roots on it still, but you can just trim that off before storing. In a paper-lined container or bag, these can last for up to about 2 weeks, but we usually eat ours way before that. You can use a sharp knife as well, and that's usually recommended when growing many trays as it gets a cleaner cut. I don't rinse mine ahead of time so they can store longer, but I do put them on a paper towel after harvest to absorb any extra moisture and thus extend their shelf life. Now with the little container, you can harvest them the same, or you can leave them like this and just cut what you want as needed. You can do this for about a week or so and then harvest and store it in the fridge. So thank you guys so much for watching today's tutorial on growing microgreens. Microgreens are a fantastic way to start, whether you have a spacious garden or a windowsill. It's amazing how a little bit of space can lead to such a vibrant and delicious bounty. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more tips and tutorials, and don't forget to share with your friends. I'm passionate about making home gardening accessible to everyone, and I truly believe that anyone can grow their own food with a little bit of guidance and a lot of love. So go ahead, give it a try, and let me know how it goes in the comments below.